You found us! Welcome to Author Quick Draw. This is your permission slip to take a quick break from the hecticness of your newsfeed and hang out with me, Annie Bucknall, freelance feature writer and women's fiction author, as I get to spend some time playing Pictionary, giving away prizes and having fun with some of Australia's best loved authors. Now, we know that your favourite authors can tell incredible page-turning stories, but can they draw? We're about to find out live now in 3, 2, 1, go. Hello and good evening, everyone, and a big welcome to Joanna Nell.
Oh, hi. Hi, Annie. Hi, everybody. It's fantastic to be here. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you so much for being brave enough to take up the challenge and play with the Pictionary while we talk about your book. So can you draw? Do you have an artistic talent hidden away?
Look, I used to love drawing when I was a kid. I spent a lot of time drawing, but the only problem is that I could only draw one thing, and that was horses. And I got really good at drawing horses. So I can pretty much draw any animal as long as it has a mane and a tail and 4 hooves, and any person as long as they're actually riding a horse. So, you know, the rest of it, a little bit so-so.
Even just mastering that is pretty impressive. I would hate to see what my horse would be like if I tried to draw any kind of animal, really. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for watching tonight. I'm talking to you from Brisbane. Jo, where are we talking to you from tonight?
I'm in Sydney, on Sydney's northern beaches.
Oh, wonderful. And guys at home, let us know where you're watching from and if you can hear us loud and clear. Might be a little bit lag at times, but we'll just work with it. This time of night is so popular for everybody using the internet. Now, for those of you who don't know Jo, Joanna Nell was born in the UK and studied medicine at Cambridge and Oxford universities. Her essays and short fiction have won multiple awards, and she's been published in medical journals and literary anthologies. A former ship's doctor and now working as a GP, Joanna writes character-driven stories, creating young at heart characters whom we just adore, who are not afraid to break the rules and defy society's expectations of aging. Her best-selling novels make a wonderful Christmas gift, and the latest one, which I've just finished reading, is The Great Escape from Woodlands Nursing Home. It is just so beautiful, so delightful. We were having a chat in the green screen about how important these kinds of books are, so I can't wait to talk to you guys about this. It'll have to go on the Christmas list, I'm sure. So the way it's going to work tonight is we're going to chat to Jo about her novel, and while she's chatting, we'll distract her with some questions, and she's going to draw obviously her favourite movie. At the end of that, we're going to get Jo to hold it up and guess, and the first person to guess correctly is going to win a copy of this book to take home, which is so nice. It will be open to all viewers watching from Australia. All right, so Jo, can we get into talking about The Great Escape from Woodlands Nursing Home? I guess just to start off with, can you tell people what essentially the novel's about?
Yeah, sure. So the novel is set in a fictional retirement village, a fictional nursing home, Woodlands Nursing Home, and follows the story of 2 equally reluctant residents, neither of which particularly wants to be there and is in a hurry to go home for different reasons. One is Hattie Bloom, who's a reclusive woman who's basically lived on her own apart from her birds that visit her garden, and she lands up in the nursing home after a fall from a ladder after she's trying to save a nest of rare birds, and she understands birds, not so much people, and she ends up living next door to Walter, who loves people, and is a very gregarious would-be comedian, bit of a dad joke comedian, who can only go home once he's passed the driving test for his electric mobility scooter, aka the Tesla. And the 2 of them meet at a clandestine social club run after hours by the night Sister Bronwyn. It's called the Night Owls. But when Sister Bronwyn is dismissed over her rather unconventional approach to aged care, Hattie and Walter and their sidekick Murray must come together and form a bit of a covert plan to have Sister Bronwyn reinstated.
Oh, it is just such a tale. Like, the characters are so heartwarming and really uplifting, and it's one of those things where I don't know why more stories don't have older characters at their heart, because they're able to just carry the story and get into so much mischief, but they've got such interesting life experience. You know, you're writing these characters who've lived an entire life when they've gotten to this point, and are often, you know, not viewed by society as still adding value and having these rich inner lives that you really explore in your novels. So I guess that leads straight into the next question, which is, what is it that makes you want to write about protagonists and main characters who are young at heart, who are in a later phase of their life? What drew you to writing these sorts of stories?
Well, you're quite right, aren't you, really, that there aren't many books. I mean, there's a handful of books and books that I've loved that have featured older characters, but generally older characters are sort of given rather sort of supporting roles and rather sort of archetypal supporting roles in literature. So my sort of fascination with aging I think started when I was a child, actually. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. My mother was in hospital complications from delivering my younger brother, and I spent a time living with my grandparents and really sort of felt like I grew up with them. And I was quite a sort of introverted, shy child who was always quite happy to sit and watch, and observe other people. And I spent a lot of time observing my grandparents and their lives and their interaction with their friends. And the whole sort of aging thing became a sort of real fascination for me. I think if you're anxious, you tend to worry about what's ahead. And I was an anxious child and thinking, what is it like to get old, and this sort of fascination had stayed with me. And through medical school, the older patients were always the ones that I gravitated towards because they were always really kind and patient, when you're a fumbling medical student. They got the time. And I found them really great company. I would sit down and listen. They had the great stories, as you said, a whole life to draw on. And there's lots of studies that show happiness, different ages of life is this sort of a U-shaped curve. So if we're happy in childhood, and then our happiness and contentedness tends to go down in middle age and then up again in old age. So it's exactly what you would think would be the opposite, really, is that even with the challenges of aging, that older people are often more contented and happier with their lives. They're able to draw on, life experience and with a great deal of stoicism and wit as well. They make great company. And so I gravitated towards that and working in nursing homes and aged care facilities as a GP, and it became a fascination and a passion of mine. And I suppose, when you start writing, they say write what you know, and I suppose I don't know necessarily what it's like to be an 80 or a 90-year-old person yet, but I was really trying to sort of, I suppose, answer my own questions and fascination with it, and authors tend to keep going back to the same questions, really. So it wasn't necessarily a conscious decision, I'm going to write about older characters. But when I started my writing journey and started writing short stories, I found that all my characters were older characters. So that's really how it started, and it's just become something I really enjoy doing. And I think that we should be telling these stories, so I've jumped right in.
Yeah, we should, and we really should be. I think seeing like people reflected at all different stages and ages in fiction is what validates all different parts of human experience, and I just think it's so important. And even as a younger person reading something like this, like it helps bridge that gap in between generations and help understand that, like you said, they're often relegated, older characters, to the secondary roles. They're the mentor characters. But in your story, these people still have some things to learn from each other as well. They're not finished living. They're not finished learning. They're going through a really challenging experience adjusting to a nursing home in this case. And being able to take that journey with them, it kind of helps you sort of understand what some of the challenges are in getting older, but also in aged care. So you talk about sometimes the positive aging movement and what positive aging means to you. So what is it, even in the back of The Great Escape from Woodlands Nursing Home, you talk about the aged care, I'm losing the word of it now.
The Royal Commission.
Royal Commission, that's it. The Royal
Commission, yeah.
And your hopes for the future and your hopes of being, having a more optimistic outlook on what you'd like to see. So can you tell us a little bit about, from your experiences and from getting in the head of these characters, what would you like to see change, and what does positive aging really mean?
Yeah, I become a bit of an accidental sort of activist, I suppose, for positive aging, and through writing, I wanted to sort of show the human stories, because I think what we're lacking is that sort of empathy, and that we see aging. Older people as something that's other, and we tend to sort of warehouse old age. We're a very youth-obsessed society. It's almost old age and death is still a taboo. It's something that we don't like to talk about. But the fact that we don't talk about it makes it no less likely to happen. And of all the discriminations, this is the most ludicrous form of discrimination, because it's something that we're all going to face. We're all getting old. Some of us are a little bit closer than that, but everybody will have an experience. Everybody will know someone who is elderly, who's been in aged care. But I think that what we're not seeing, we tend to be sort of hiding it away. And what I want to do, I think we've lost a little bit of empathy, really, and understanding and compassion for older people. So what I wanted to do with the books is sort of take it inside what I think is hopefully a fairly authentic nursing home, and show you that people who live there are still people. They still have lives to live. They have value, and I think this is where we need to increase respect, and that only comes from understanding. And reading's a great way to increase empathy, if we can actually see the world through the eyes of these characters and see the challenges. Like, I didn't want to sugarcoat the whole experience,
No.
but we have to talk about what's good about aging, and there's an awful lot that's good about aging. That I've talked about, happiness and contentedness, but also we have to look at the challenges that the aged care industry is facing. And I started writing this book before the Royal Commission was even announced, and inadvertently, I suppose that I've given a bit of an inside story. I have shown in the nursing home what some of the challenges are, and that often comes down to the staffing. So I think that this is one of the ways that we can improve aged care. One is that we need to design a system that accommodates the needs of the residents, rather than have the residents molded, their lives molded to fit one size fits all system. So we need to have it a little bit more flexible, I think, and to have residents and people who are approaching older age have a great deal more input and say in how they want to age, and what's important to them. But I also think we need to increase the value that staff in aged care feel. We need to pay them more, because a nurse who works in an acute care ward will earn $20 an hour more than a nurse in aged care.
Wow,
we're not paying the staff. So, and there's a whole sort of background to how this has come about. But in the profit sector, obviously, higher paid nurses are replaced with lower paid and poorly trained staff who have no real career path. A lack of sort of education structure, and a lack of support, and respect and value. So, we should, I think, be encouraging, apprenticeships in aged care, and, increasing the number of trained staff. Obviously, the ratios need to increase, because in an aged care facility, one nurse can be in charge of over 100 residents, all of whom can be frail and have high health needs. Whereas in emergency or acute care, there are mandated nurse-patient ratios, where one nurse will be maybe looking after 4 or 5 patients. So we need a paradigm shift, I think. We need to staffing, and it's not a case of can we afford it. It's basically a case of this is the amount of staff we need, because otherwise, I think residents are just reduced to a series of tasks to be done quickly, to get through to the next thing. What we need to be able to do is allow care staff to care, to sit and to chat and to keep people company and to have the patience to let someone to dress themselves, even if that takes a little bit longer, and feed themselves, and to encourage independence rather than dependence. So I think there's a lot that can be done. I'm really optimistic. I'm really hopeful that the Royal Commission, having uncovered really it's a terrible mess that has been kicked down the road like an old tin can by successive governments for years and years, and sadly has really all come to light now during the pandemic. But I'm really optimistic that things are going to get better.
And I think that's the thing too, reading this now, you have that perspective of like, oh gosh, people are going through these experiences, and then we've now had them go through COVID inside these facilities where they're, the Night Owls Club in the book, where the nurse Bronwyn basically creates a club where people who can't sleep during the night or are awake for hours at night time can come and socialise with each other and participate in activities related to their old vocations and do all these sorts of things. And you make a point there of saying that she specifically doesn't necessarily believe in the over-reliance in using chemicals to, medication to make residents sleep overnight, because it's not necessarily the natural sleeping rhythm of elderly people. And I think about myself when I don't sleep fully through the night, either. So, it is quite an unrealistic expectation that people are just going to lie in their bed from this time to this time. So just even those sorts of points that you make in the way that you do that through those characters, Walter suggesting, hey, why don't we get a vending machine so we can help ourselves to things sometimes? How good would it be to just not have to ask? And I just didn't think about what it would feel like to have that, like you said, to be reduced to a series of tasks. So, you want something for your room and you're going to have to get in a queue to ask one of the carers and nurses to bring it to you, and they might be dealing with much more urgent needs, and therefore, but you're so reliant. So it's just such a good point. And I think the whole staffing issue, without sounding cynical, it kind of comes down to sometimes it feels like some of these facilities are run for profit, and that's what it's about. And the books like this really help us see the humans that are inside the facilities, our grandparents, our parents, and one day us, and how important it is to place the emphasis on having a really great end of life facility that we be a part of.
Exactly. And so I look at what I hope is, I don't want to bash people over the head with my message, but I want to make the book entertaining, because fiction should entertain. That's the primary reason behind it. But I'm hoping that, we need to start having a conversation really, really early on, I think, much earlier than we are, because what often happens is that, we just don't think about it. We don't talk about it with our families. And then something happens, like with poor Hattie, has a fall and that's it. It's a broken hip, and there's no choice, where you go from hospital. It's wherever has a bed. You have to go to respite or rehab or permanent placement. So we need to have this discussion really early on. So I'm hoping that after reading the book and making it palatable and entertaining and showing that there's people who are facing perhaps that choice of thinking about going into aged care are not going to be terrified that this is just the worst thing in the world. But I think we should be talking about it, whether say what I want is to stay in place, is to age in place with support from family or carers, or no, I want to go and to move into a facility when I need extra help. But this is what I want from it. And it's not necessarily the glitz, the glamour, the expensive paintings on the wall. It often comes down to the quality of the management and the staffing, which is something often we don't, you don't have much insight in beforehand. So, we have a birth plan, don't we? When we're giving birth, we have it down to exactly, what music we want playing and all that. But, we don't necessarily have an aging or a death plan even. And so I think it's one of those final taboos that we need to talk about and, come up with something more inventive. And look, my the night owls is a little bit of a fanciful, whimsical solution, but why not? People
Exactly.
need to maintain a sense of purpose, and if that means that after hours when people can't sleep, having been put to bed at 6:30 at night, who can sleep 8 hours through the night? We know that with aging, and particularly people living with dementia, don't sleep solidly 8 hours. And instead of fighting to put people back to bed, to offer them an alternative and say, come and fold laundry, mark this essay, shine this bit of antique, whatever it is. So give people the option of what they want to do, and entertain them, let them decide what they want to do. And even if it's just a hot drink and a chat with somebody, it's basic human rights, isn't it, really? Allowing people the freedom to make their own choices. And look, in the book I have a bit of a go at health and safety. It's a little bit sort of satirical about or ironic about the health and safety, but that's one of the dilemmas, isn't it? You've got to keep people safe. One of the characters in the book says, a nursing home's a place where you go to fall safely. There's a little bit of irony there, but it's keeping people safe, but it's also allowing people to make their own decisions and to maintain independence. And is it a person's human right to do something for themselves but fall doing it, or take a long time to do it? And so I think there's a lot of basic human rights, anything that we would consider in aged care would be the same as in childcare. So if we think, oh no, that would never happen in childcare, why is it allowed to happen in aged care? There is something about old age where it seems to be okay to allow people to receive substandard care and rights.
And that's so sad. But and with the book and the way that you've told that story, like you said, it isn't like you're trying to bash people over the head with your views on it. It is very much told from a perspective of these characters that are so lively, and they're just experiencing and living, and there's just through their lives and through the things they experience comes that commentary and that that undertone of what might need to change to make things better and how things could be. And I think that one of the things that really struck me about this novel too was that regardless of some of the issues in aged care itself, it is the human connections and the people and how the characters really forge those connections together. So I'm wondering how you're going with your drawing so far.
Oh, so I haven't started. Sorry, we were chatting, weren't we? Okay, I'm going to.
I did want to. So you're now it's going to get tricky. So you actually talk about no, I don't know if you actually. It's all right, Jo. There's plenty of comments. Get some reader comments actually while you're doing that. So there's lots and lots of people who've been commenting on while we've been chatting.
Okay.
So we've got Sandy Jocker watching tonight.
Oh, hi, Sandy.
Yes, people watching from all over Queensland. Sandy wants to know if you'll be drawing Black Beauty, which would make sense.
I would love to. I would love to, but was there a movie? I think there was a movie, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was. I think probably back in
there was, yes. No, that would be too much of a cheat. Okay, we're getting there.
Absolutely loves your books, and Sandy says that her mum is giving a copy of this book for Christmas. Nice. Jem McCusker says she feels this. She loves chatting with elderly people when she sees them at the shops. They remind her of her gran in one way or another, which is really nice.
Good
point too, Jem. Finding ways to make connections with people in all different scenarios. Yes, Neen's saying that respect for older people sometimes seems forgotten lately, and she's seen how much happier her mum has gotten as she started to get older. Leanne loves that you're an accidental activist, which is, I think, a great term. And Linda said that her father loved to help out in the kitchen when he was in a nursing home. Oh, that's really great, Linda. I'm glad that he was given those opportunities as well.
That's right. It's having, why not? Why can't residents help out? Why can't they help with the cooking and the serving and, you know, within reason, obviously. But, you know, having that sort of sense of purpose. And again, it's having the staff having the time just to be able to help supervise that. And, you know.
Yeah, and that's probably what it comes down to is
we encourage children, don't we? You know, in preschool, we encourage them to, you know, to cook and play and do all those things. But somehow we expect at the other end just people to sort of sit in a chair and watch television. You know,
that doesn't sound all that entertaining, does it?
Doesn't to me, no.
Certain amount of television that you can enjoy, and then after that, you know, life. Everyone needs to feel that they've got a purpose and they've got a place in whatever society or community they're operating in. Caroline answers, as an occupational therapist, having worked in geriatric assessment and rehab for many years, it's a discussion very close to home for her. She also says that her father has advanced Alzheimer's and is in a nursing home and she can't focus. That's really great.
Good. Yeah, great. There are some great places. That's the thing. And that's the thing is that, you know, if it's possible to deliver really good care in a really good nursing home, why can't that be the standard? Why can't that be everywhere? So that's what we want. We want to raise everybody up to the best that there is. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got people that are in care at the moment that you love that are accessing it and they're having a great experience. And that's really wonderful. And I think that it's important to, just like Woodlands Nursing Home shows what it can be like, for people to know that that kind of experience is out there, and that's what we're all reaching for here. Cindy is also an occupational therapist, and she said she bought Woodlands today, and that she works with kids. She's all about independence in aged care.
Good. Thank you, Cindy.
Residents at the facility her husband is in, sets the tables in the dining room every day. So really great to see.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
That's really good.
That's really good. Yeah.
Have you finished your drawing?
I've done. I finished. Yeah. Do you want? Shall I reveal?
Yes, please hold it up to the camera and just like slowly pan it across is probably the best way.
Okay. Oh, hang on. No, hang on. Where are we going? There we go.
Okay, guys. So there'll probably be a bit of a lag while everyone's guessing. So up in the top right-hand corner, looks like we have a flag of some sort. Okay, and that's actually quite good, Jo.
Is it too cryptic? I wonder. No.
I think we might.
It's quite literal.
Yes, we have our first guess. So I'm first in, best served. Everyone's guessing the same thing. I think you've nailed it. You've nailed the drawing. Okay, Jem McCusker wants to know if it's English patient. Well done, Jem. It is the English patient.
Well done, Jem.
Everybody guessed that, Jo. So you must have.
Did they? All right.
Yeah, there's about 6 guesses there for the English patient.
Oh, I love it. I love the book too. But Kristen Scott Thomas and Ray Fiennes and all that beautiful cinematography. Oh,
classic.
Love that film.
I haven't actually read the book, so I might have to put that on my list for next year.
He's great.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Well, I don't know if the book's great. I'm sure it is, considering the movie's wonderful and the book's a classic. So just to wrap up, I want to ask you some questions on behalf of the writing community, because we're always interested in how people got their start. And can I just say, it's so wonderful to speak to a writer who has such a rich background and such a rich career, being that you've been a GP beforehand too. I think it just adds so much to your story. So that's really cool. People do classify your books as something called uplit. So I love that term, and I love, because any time I've read a book that's been tagged as uplit, I've just absolutely adored the story. Can you tell people what uplit kind of is?
Yeah, when my publisher said, "Oh, you're uplit," I had no idea what uplit was. And I think any sort of genre is really, just trying to help publishers and booksellers put a book on the right shelf, for readers to find. But I think the first, if you think the first probably uplit book, at the beginning of the uplit genre sort of wave was Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. So essentially, uplit books are essentially books with hope and optimism at their core. So the words heartwarming or life affirming would probably be part of them. And they, you know, they have sort of kindness and compassion and empathy at their core, but they're often tales of unlikely friendships, or, you know, groups getting together. So I suppose like the residents of Woodlands Nursing Home. But I think they're often very ordinary communities, but often very deeply flawed characters who are overcoming some sort of adversity. So they're kind of the classic underdog stories. Yeah. And I would say that, you know, they don't always have a happy ever after, but they have a satisfying ending. And if you like, a happy ever after for now. And they often take the reader on a journey. So they're not, you know, light and fluffy, it's all lovely all the way through. They often, the characters are facing, you know, great adversity, whether that's through personal or through what they're facing in their society. So they're often very emotional, highs and lows, and often can go to sort of quite dark places before, you know, before coming up with a, you know, hopeful and optimistic resolution. And why do we need them? We need uplift, I think, more than ever now, don't we? I mean, you know, all reading, all fiction is a form of escapism, isn't it, really? And I suppose the idea of uplift is that you can escape, you can go on a, you know, follow a character and through an emotional journey, but feel better at the end of the book than you did at the beginning. I suppose that's what it is. So look, there's, you know, all types of people have their own preferences, but I love uplift, and that's what I didn't realize I was writing it, but I suppose it comes from being a doctor. You know, I want people to feel better. I want to hear that they're in pain, or hear that, you know, what's going wrong in their lives, but at the end I want to give them a prescription or a, you know, a tonic or something, and I want them to feel better at the end of that. So I think it was a bit of a natural for me.
And you know, these books are such feel-good books. They do have that hope and optimism just at their core, and that's one of the things I love about them so much. I'm wondering to know, I was reading somewhere that you might have, when you first started writing, done a few courses and things like that, but I'm curious about with the Jacaranda story, the single ladies of Jacaranda. Oh, I'm gonna
retirement village, yeah.
Yes. I'm wondering how you got your start in publishing with that book. Was that the first manuscript that you wrote fully through? Did you work on a course to get it done? How did you actually get started publishing and writing?
Oh, it actually wasn't my first manuscript at all. When I started writing, I did several online courses, and I, you know, read books, went to festivals, you know, workshops and things, and I spent about 4 years writing my first manuscript, which has never been published. And it was really, I'd started pitching that to agents and publishers and had a little bit of interest, but really, you know, no takers for that. And I realized that, you know, every author, I think, has their practice novel, and I'd put everything I'd ever wanted to say about life into that novel. And yet, if you asked me to, you know, for my elevator pitch, I'd really struggle with it. You know, it was that sort of classic where it didn't have that hook, really. You know, the premise wasn't strong enough for that. And I think that the idea of the single ladies just came from a character which I created her really early on in my very first creative writing course. I'd created this character and I'd put her in a little short story. And I didn't feel I was done with her. And you know, maybe it needed that time to sort of percolate a little bit into until there was enough there for a novel. And that novel came quite quickly, actually, actually far quicker and easier than the novels I've written. Wow. It sort of came almost fully formed. I couldn't keep up. I couldn't write fast enough. I was at a Bundanon Trust at a writer's residency there, and I think I wrote 17,000 words in a week or something. You know, I just sat down at the desk and it just literally poured out of me. I was sort of incontinent of words with this. It had just been waiting to come out. And so, and I was fairly confident with the premise, but still not sure if anyone was going to publish a book with, you know, two nearly 80-year-old women who spend a lot of time discussing their love lives. I just thought, no, look, it's the book that wanted to be written, but I just don't know whether it'll ever be published. And thank goodness I found that, you know, maybe just on the cusp of more enlightenment in publishing, the perhaps recognizing an appetite for more diverse stories. And of course, ages are stories featuring older people are also sort of diverse, if you like. So I found that actually it was really well received. So I had a bit of a dream run. It feels like I was an overnight success, but it actually took about 6 years to get there.
Yeah, it's a long night, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a long overnight.
Yeah, that's right. But it's really important to hear too, because oftentimes we do, as aspiring writers, feel like everyone just sat down and and it did pour out of them. It was their first novel and they just got their agent publisher. It was all done. So to hear that you worked at it so hard, so long, did you practice novels and then ended up with these beautiful run of books that you've got is really, really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's really good. It helps put things in perspective, I think, too. So if someone watching tonight is thinking about writing a novel that they would classify as uplit, they want to write something with that hope, optimism core, what advice would you give to aspiring authors who are looking to break into the genre?
Yeah, so I presume by that you meaning wanting to really sort of be published in that genre. And I think it's really important, however good your writing is, and of course it gets better and better the more you do, but I think it's really important to have a really strong premise, because you can write the most beautiful prose, but if there isn't that sort of strong premise and hook, unfortunately it's not going to be picked up by a publisher immediately. So in terms of uplit, look, there are stories everywhere. Just say, look around you, look at what's going on in your community, read the paper, listen what's going on, watch what those little stories on Facebook, things that people share, and you go, oh, isn't that a lovely story? That would be good. Something's closing down and the locals have to keep it open, or, an unusual character who's a little bit different and has to break into mainstream. So all of these stories are around us. I think if you want to write uplift, look around, but make terrible things happen to your characters. Don't be too kind to them. You've got to run them through the mill. You've got to be really cruel to them, and obviously they're going to need to come out of that and prevail at the end. But have a think about the story and the hook of the story before you invest too much time, I think, and just wait for the right story. You'll know what it is because you'll feel it with your whole body. You'll go, that's it. That's the story. That's the one. So sometimes that happens, but not always.
Yeah, and I think too, sometimes uplit, the premise can be so simple. Like, for example, one of the ones I love is called The Lido, and it's about a pool in the UK that's getting shut down. And it's about the older lady who goes to swim at the pool every day, and the friendship between her and the journalist, who, they start to and it is such a simple premise. It's about a pool closing, a community pool closing, but it's just the characters, I think, as well, and the community just form such a big part of the storytelling that, and that's probably one of the things that make it so special. These books, it's the friendships that are told through these stories are really important as well.
That's Libby Page, I think, isn't it, that book, which is awesome.
Yes.
But yeah, look, I think opposites. So like unlikely pairings of people. I think that's the other thing as well. So
there's definitely two unlikely.
So put an introvert and an extrovert together and see what happens. A recluse and a comedian together. So I think that's part of the key to it. And look, good luck, everyone. We need more uplit. So please write it.
The world needs it, that's for sure. Well, Joanna, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If people want to keep up with what you're up to and what's next for you, actually, what is next for you on the fiction front? Is there any news there?
Look, I'm just about to submit a manuscript on another novel, which will hopefully be out this time next year. Another uplit, I guess. Featuring two older characters and a teenager this time, so from 3 points of view. So, cool. Don't have the title yet, but it's likely to have the words "the kiosk" in it. So look out for that. Still a bit of work to do on that.
So if people want to make sure that they don't miss it when we do the next release, where should they head to?
So look, I've got a website, which is www.joannanell.com, and I'm on social media. I've got a Facebook page, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Twitter sometimes. I lurk a little bit at the edge of Twitter. I feel like I'm watching the cool kids in the playground, but I'm there, and I think I don't know what my handles are. They might be Joanna Nell Writer or Jo Nell Writer, so you can just Google me.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jo. Next week, guys, we're joined by Pamela Hart and also Trisha Stringer. So Pamela's on Thursday, Trisha's on Friday. We're talking to Pamela about the Charleston scandal, which if you love The Crown, it's such a good book. It's about jazz age London in the 20s and, a royal scandal. It's absolutely brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to that. And also, obviously pick up a copy of The Great Escape from Woodlands Nursing Home. Give it to someone you love for Christmas. If you've already read this, you can go back and you can read The Single Ladies of Jacaranda Retirement Village or The Last Voyage of Mrs. Henry Parker as well. Both brilliant, brilliant reads. Thank you for your time, everyone. And Joanna, thank you so much. Have a lovely, lovely Christmas.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun. And thanks, everybody. And happy Christmas. Bye.
It's about time for that cuppa now, don't you think? Thank you so much for joining me tonight, guys. I hope you had as much nerdy fun as I did chatting to some of our absolute favourite best-selling authors. You will never believe the people I have lined up for us in the next couple of weeks. So to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the fun or really any of the giveaways, be sure that you've liked and subscribed to my YouTube channel, Annie Bucknall, or like me on Facebook where we go live at 7:30 every Thursday night. You can also find me on Instagram at annie.bucknall where I share more of my daily life and my daily battle trying to write a novel and file freelance feature articles with a toddler in tow. It's good fun. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.